let's bring in tonight's Bream team to debate these hot topics on a very busy news day. Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall and Jason Chaffetz, and California Republican Chairwoman Jessica Milley Patterson. Great to have all of you with us. Coming off the news now that all of the major media outlets are now calling this as a win for Governor Gavin Newsom, saying it's not even going to be close. Jessica, your response?
Well, certainly this governor had to have two former presidents and just about everybody from the Democrat establishment come in and rescue him. Watching what's happened in Afghanistan and the Americans and Californians that are still stuck there, abandoned by this administration. And this president came out here to try and save Gavin Newsom's job. It's appalling and it's disgusting. But what I can say is that this recall effort was great at putting political pressure on this governor. We would not have seen our children back in schools. We would not have seen our businesses opening here in California without this political pressure. So I'm looking forward to the infrastructure that we built and the opportunity that we have going into 2022.
So, Leslie, the governor now feeling vindicated and holding on. Do you think some of those things Jessica talked about will be rolled back now?
Look, one thing that I like about the governor, and one of the reasons I voted no on this recall, was that he did not make his decisions politically. And we saw that because, quite frankly, some people thought they were nails in his coffin as governor when he said, look, I'm not going to open the schools. I'm not going to, stop the lockdowns. I'm not going to open the beaches early, because he was going by what the healthcare workers in this state were telling him. He specifically tied those decisions based on ICU capacity or lack thereof. And that's why in the first round, in the first wave of COVID, California led the nation with the least amount of COVID cases and the least amount of deaths at one time, despite the fact we are the largest. What this state and what my state where I sit right now and live in California has said is that they approve of Governor Gavin Newsom's handling of COVID. They approve of the way he is handling the wildfires. And quite frankly, Shannon, I think I had told you this before, I think Texas and SB8 actually helped a little bit, but at the end of the day, Republicans should be worried, because there are strongholds in Orange County and other Republican districts that voted no on this recall.
Well, and we're told there are still people, we had a report from one of our producers on the ground that there were still people in line waiting to vote in some of those more red portions of California, if there are some truly red portions there. But Jason, Leslie says that the governor followed the science, he followed the healthcare workers, but he took a lot of heat for doing things like going to a fancy dinner with maskless and doing the whole thing, his kids being in private school and having different options. One of his kids or two of his kids potentially being at a mask-free summer camp. He says he didn't know they're going to be mask-free. None of that stuck, though. There was enough there that these Californians say, this is the guy that we're sticking with. We feel confident.
Gavin Newsom won the election. He won it by a healthy margin. You can't get around that. But at the same time, I got to tell you, the way they conducted this campaign is fairly disgusting, because they did not focus on the issues. They made it about race. They made it about Trump. They made it on other things. Anything to avoid talking about crime and homelessness and forest management, on how the fires go. That was not the impetus. That was not what they were talking about in this campaign. Nevertheless, Republicans got to get organized, and they got to fight back on these issues one at a time. And they've got to go win these in congressional seats. Democrats have a 2-to-1 margin. They have a lot more Democrats registered, so they should win by big margins, but they did tonight.
All right, I want to skip ahead to the news about General Milley. Again, our Jennifer Griffin says that sources she hears from are saying that there is context missing with some of these reports that are allegedly in the Woodward book and Costa book. But here's what the Washington Post said today. They say, in a pair of secret phone calls, General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, assured his Chinese counterpart that the U.S. would not strike. Milley also summoned senior officers to review the procedures for launching nuclear weapons, saying the president alone could give the order, but crucially, that Milley, also had to be involved. They go on to say that after saying that, Milley asked each of those people to look him in the eyes and to acknowledge that they understood exactly what he was saying. Jason, do you think that we'll get answers? Will he be called in front of Congress, or in other ways will we find out what was true, what wasn't?
General Milley needs to come out definitively and soon, like right away, and say either those comments are not true and here's what actually happened, or yes, I did say that. And if he did say that, then I do think he needs to be dismissed by the president immediately, or he needs to resign something. you follow the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States. You don't call the Chinese counterpart and say, I will give you a heads up if we're going to take any military action. I mean, that is kind of the definition of treason. So he's got a lot of explaining to do. Not some spokesperson, not somebody at the Pentagon, General Milley himself. When you're a four-star general, you're generally a politician at heart. You don't rise to that level without being a degree of a politician. But he's got to look people in the eye and tell, did he say it or did he not? And then suffer the consequences one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, some of it sounds rather hard to believe. These are these authors, is their book. Only he can tell us the truth. Senator Rand Paul saying this, I don't care what you think of President Trump, the chairman of the JCOS, working to subvert the military chain of command and collude with China is exactly what we do not accept from military leaders in our country. He should be court-martialed if true. Leslie.
Again, immediately people just jump to conclusions. My side did it with the same general, with the former president Donald Trump in front of a church, if we all remember, in Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. And then when we heard from the general, we found out that the general was not using the military brass on his shoulders to clear that crowd for the president for a photo op. And we found a lot of truth that came out later. That's the problem right now, is that we jump to conclusions. We believe every single headline. We believe every single report. And sadly, lately, there have been a lot of things that had to be backtracked or completely removed because they were false. I am confident that the general will not be court-martialed, has not committed treason, and will remain in his position, within the Joint Chiefs as he did in the prior administration.
Yeah, I mean, so this is on Woodward and Costa at this point. Again, we wait hearing from the general. The Washington Post also had an opinion piece by Max Boot saying this. Milley should be commended for acting to limit an unhinged commander-in-chief's ability to overthrow the government or start a war. Jessica, hyperbole or no?
I think that's just outrageous. If we're missing context, then he needs to come in front of Congress and he needs to explain what that context is that we're missing. Until then, we won't really know.
Okay, we thank you all for the breaking news all across many topics tonight. Great to see you.
Thanks, Shannon.